People ignore the fact that the breeders are taking gambles. You have to take care of your breeders. That's the backbone of this industry. I need to provide for the breeder the best investment program I can. Share the upside. I've had a lot of people tell me they were glad they did it. You have people here, they have a farm and they need to sell their foals and they need to have a chance of making money. I'm proud of what's happened here. I think that we're just in the beginning stages. I'm excited really about the future.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Spa Babies, presented by Spendthrift, the Breeder's Farm. I'm Dan Illman, along with Nicole Russo, and we begin Thursday's card at Saratoga, as well as the month of August, as well as the early pick 5, with our Spa Babies race. Let's take a look at the field for the opener. We're going 5.5 furlongs on the turf, and you'll note that this is a restricted maiden special weight. For our friends handicapping at home, let's note the restriction. This race is for horses that sold or were bought back for $45,000 or less in their most recent sale. Nicole, we have seen a couple of these at Saratoga this year. It is a new condition for 2019. From what I've seen, it pays to actually follow these auction prices because the horses that just seem to qualify, they do well.
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen so far. Of course, a small sample size to work with. On paper, I think these races are very interesting. Of course, we know that a good horse can come from anywhere, but this certainly seems to create a little bit of a level playing field. But yeah, that's what we've seen so far is the horses who have sold for, between $40,000 and that $45,000 limit have been very interesting plays here.
Well, we'll take this field in post-position order, beginning with the number 1, Alex Love Candy. Alex Love Candy breezed 23-2. That's kind of slow at the Facig-Tipton May sale earlier this spring. And maybe that's one of the reasons why a Son of Candy ride sold for only $13,000. A very nice pedigree, half to a couple of black type earners. The second dam was a good graded stakes winner on the dirt named Top Secret. I'm interested in how this one will perform on the turf, however, going 5.5. I wonder if maybe he'll want a little more distance.
Yeah, I think so as well. And certainly the fact that the Connections chose to work this horse a quarter at the sale instead of the traditional furlong speaks to that. Sometimes when I see that, I think, perhaps they know the horse isn't going to get off to a quick running start at that furlong work and they want to go a bit longer to show him off. And, with Alex Love Candy having drawn inside here on debut, I'm probably going to take a pass on this one.
I think I will as well. Here's a formulator fact for Alex Love Candy's trainer, Randy Prasad. Over the past 3 years on turf, only 1 for 63, 29-cent return on investment. I think the number 2, Get Smokin', is a little bit interesting, however. This gelding sold for $11,000 as a yearling, and we know that Get Stormy, the stallion, does well on turf, and this is the family of Phi Beta Doc, who is a nice turf horse as well. The Get Stormies usually aren't very precocious, but I think it's a nice sign that Javier Castellano takes over for an underrated horseman in Tom Bush.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's interesting about this gelding. Get Stormy, who you mentioned, obviously he was a terrific performer on turf. You're crossing him over a Smoke Glacken mare. I think Smoke Glacken certainly injects some speed into the mix for this turf sprint. You mentioned Javier Castellano aboard on debut on a gelding who, has a decent turf work to show at Saratoga, a couple of them actually. I do like when, two-year-olds have been able to work on turf before debuting on turf, as some of them don't get that opportunity.
And we certainly like horses with already have experience on the racetrack, like the number 3, Frosted Rose. This colt made his career debut at Laurel and actually took money, bet down to 4-1 in a 9-horse field, showed no speed whatsoever, a bit green early, passed some horses late. Michael Trombetta is adding blinkers in order perhaps to get some speed into Frosted Rose. Only sold for $17,000 as a yearling, but really strong family, especially for synthetic and turf, some big names in Lara and Summerfront.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to call those two to mind. It's a terrific turf synthetic type family, under this one. And, they didn't show much on debut, was pretty green, as you mentioned. And, I always give horses a mulligan for their first start. I think it's a nice sign that Joel Rosario gets aboard the second-time starter.
Let's talk about the number 4, Saint Marco, a $40,000 weanling who was bought back for $37,000 as a yearling. From the first crop of tonalist, it's early. He's gotten off to a slow start. I think many pedigree analysts expect the tonalists to do better with experience, with distance. How do you think the tonalists will do on turf, however? This Saint Marco is a half to a multiple turf stakes winner. A lot of dirt on the bottom of the family, however.
Yeah, a lot of dirt on the bottom, a lot of speed on the bottom with the likes of Rothko and others in the family. Tonalist, I think, is very interesting as, perhaps a turf type sire. He's by Tappet, who, can get a turf horse. He's had the likes of Tappet's Fly and Lara and others on turf or synthetic. Tonalist from the female family that's produced horses like Grade 1 winning turf female Risk Averse. That being said, I do expect the tonalists, whatever surface they're running on, to need some more distance, to need some time. Tonalist, a big, leggy, scopy, impressive horse. He was brilliant enough to go a mile in races like the Cigar Mile and to run very well in the Mott Mile, going that one turn at Belmont Park. But, a lot of his best work really came going longer. Of course, he was a Belmont Stakes winner over a solid field. And, again, just a big, scopy horse who's really throwing that size and leg in his offspring. I expect them to take a little time to get themselves sorted out.
Another second-time starter adding blinkers is the number 5, 9th of April. This is a son of Shanghai Bobby, a $35,000 short yearling, a $27,000 buyback as a yearling, a $15,000 May 2-year-old. So going a little bit the wrong way from an auction standpoint, but is a half to a stakes place dirt router, does have some experience on the racetrack. To me, this pedigree, though, just leans a little bit more towards dirt. I'm waiting for this horse to stretch out on dirt later.
Perhaps, but that being said, Shanghai Bobby, who's now standing in Japan, has done pretty well internationally with top-level winners in Uruguay, Brazil, a winner at Royal Ascot. So he can certainly get a turf-winning juvenile. And I will note that I thought the juvenile auction market this year was very, very picky. There were a lot of horses that I looked at and, perhaps thought they were valued a little bit higher, who did wind up, selling a bit cheaply or selling down from their yearling prices. I think that's, more than anything, a reflection on how selective that juvenile market is looking for a quick return.
I think the number 6, Mr. Phil, is very interesting in this spot. A $30,000 weanling, a $25,000 buyback earlier this year from the first crop of the turf-loving Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker wanted to go long, but there's plenty of speed on the bottom of this pedigree. This one breezed 2 furlongs and 22 seconds flat at that sale before being bought back. I really like the mixture, stamina over speed, but especially I like the turf on both sides.
Yeah, I really like this pedigree. As you mentioned, a ton of turf in there, a nice quarter-mile work for this horse. He's come back and he shows, some solid, steady work. Tyler Gaffleone riding very well at Saratoga this meet. I think there's a lot to like here at 10-1.
The number 7, Smite, a $42,000 yearling, just sneaks in under the $45,000 limit to be able to qualify for this race, is by Congrats. Solid. 10% winners, 2-year-old debut runners, 8% winners, first turf runners. The dam has already thrown a turf winner. She loved the turf. The second dam win song was a very nice turf horse. Really, the only question for me is the 5.5, because this one is bred to handle turf.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think to get that, there's a lot of route ability in the female family. And I think to get that shorter distance, he's going to have to lean pretty heavily on what sire Congrats imparts. Congrats has gotten, some outstanding sprinters like the Philly Turbulent Descent, a multiple Grade 1 winner around one turn. Smite is another one who's just some nice works for Joe Sharp, who can win with a 2-year-old and who can win with a turf horse. And again, that early pattern that we've talked about of horses who kind of just sneak in under the conditions, this one fits the bill.
The number 8 is Strong Legacy, a $20,000 yearling sold down for $9,500 earlier this year, breezed a quarter mile in 22 seconds flat. The dam a half to a stakes place turf sprinter. I think that's a very good sign. The dam also by the great Tappet. I just wonder about the strong mandates on turf. His sire, 'tis now not really a turf influence. I wonder, this is kind of just an interesting spot for me, a horse that's been working bullets on the dirt trying turf first out.
Yeah, and the thing that kind of gets me about the work tab is at this point in the year, I'd like to see a horse with a few more works. I'd like to see a few more. There are some 4 furlong works, in here, but I'd like to see a few more of those as opposed to several of these published works being at 3 furlongs. I'm just wondering how much of a foundation this one's going to have for his first start and if he'll need to race into fitness a little bit.
Nicole, I wonder if the connections of the 9 Summer Sangria got a bargain. $25,000 short yearling, $7,000 buyback as a yearling, then sold for $10,000 as a yearling, sold for $25,000 in May. This is a filly whose 4th dam is the legendary Courtly D. For broodmare prospects alone down the line, Summer Sangria, she's fairly valuable.
Yeah, definitely. Courtly D's family, everything from that family just runs. My goodness. Recent standouts from that family include the likes of Bayern. It's the family of champion Althea. They're brilliant. They could carry their speed. They win on turf. They win on dirt. McLean's Music, we know him as the sire of a Preakness winner in his first crop, but certainly he can. He was brilliant himself. Winning short in his only career start.
And this filly taking on the boys, don't be concerned. Wesley Ward has made a living winning with 2-year-old first-time starters. Fillies can beat the boys at this time of year, and certainly when they're trained by Wesley Ward, who gets them to win first time out, I would expect Summer Sangria to take some money. Completing the body of the field is the 10, Dan the Man Can, by Spendthrift Stallion Can the Man. And I was proud of Dan the Man Can's debut. I liked him that day at 9-2. He showed some speed. He took them into the stretch. He was a little bit green, very late to change leads, but he finished a solid 3rd. I think this horse is going to take to turf. I really do. The dam's a full sister to Partly Mocha, who's just a hard-hitting turf sprinter. And Can the Man has gotten off to a really nice start with his turf runners.
Yeah, he has. And, I think he's a reflection of his sire line. Some of the traits of this sire line, of course, being by Spendthrift's leading juvenile sire Into Mischief, are juvenile ability. Into Mischief can sire a turf horse with the likes of the multi-purpose Vijack. Into Mischief's late sire Harlan's Holiday could get you a turf horse. So I think that ability is there with this one, changing distances. And he, showed good speed early and then faded a little bit late. I think this one is definitely eligible to move forward off that experience.
We kick off Thursday's early pick 5 and the Saratoga card with our Spa Baby race. Again, 5.5 furlongs on the turf, a maiden auction event. We won't have the benefit of watching the tote or getting a look at the horses in the paddock. We urge all our friends at home to do that before making their final determinations. But for me, this is a spread race, Nicole. What about you?
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, it looks, to me, it looks fairly chalky. Summer Sangria, we can't overlook Wesley Ward. Dan the Man Can, we mentioned the surface switch, the possibility of moving forward off that debut. Smite, we mentioned just fitting the auction condition. I think if you're looking for, something with a little more value to play underneath, perhaps Get Smokin' with that blend of turf ability and speed is very interesting. And should the makeup of this race change before race time, if the also eligible Chimney Rock draws in, I think that one's coming out of a very live maiden, making the surface switch for Mike Maker. I think that one might be interesting at a little bit of value should he draw in.
And that horse would be dropping out of an open maiden into this restricted maiden auction event. For me, as I mentioned, it would be a spread. I'm probably going to use 4 horses in the early pick 5. In program number order, they are the 2, Get Smokin', one of the runners that Nicole mentioned. The 4, St. Marco, although by Tonalist, this damn Kinsey was pretty fast. And I like this Mid-Atlantic barn. They come in often with some live horses. The 6, Mr. Phil, as I mentioned, I really like this mixture mixture of pedigree of the Mr. Speaker on top of a successful appeal mare, and the 10 Dan the Man Can, who has experience, who has shown speed. Maybe it's folly to let Wesley Ward beat me in this race, but I'm looking at value. In order of preference, it would be 4, 10, 2, and 6. Really exciting race to kick off the Thursday card. 5.5 on the turf. It's Spa Babies, presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.